Hello and welcome to the Kuma Language Show, where we are taking a really deep dive into any and every language learning related topic we can think of, and I'm really doing my best to share as much as I can with you guys to help you become a more successful language learner and to open up a great dialogue between myself and all of you. Now today we're going to be discussing Babbel. Now some time ago I created an ultimate review of Babbel. I felt like I was in a position to do so as someone that had used the product enormously. I did like their whole catalog in like 8 different languages, and so I tried my best to be very thorough and honest, and it became the most viewed Babbel review on YouTube right now. And so in the comments of that video I got a lot of questions, and one of the most common questions was, what do you mean when you say if you know how to really use Babbel, or if you know how to make the most of Babbel? And that's a fantastic question. When I made the video, I hadn't even really realized that I was dropping that line and that it might lead to questions, right? So I'm happy to answer that now. So I'm going to give you 2 tips today on how to get the most out of Babbel. And I may make other videos in the future as more things come to my mind, but these are 2 really important things. Now, let's start with the simpler one. The first one is you have to open your mouth. I've discussed this in some recent videos. I'm doing a whole series about the daily life of maintaining and improving 8 languages, and I'm documenting my daily sort of routines and really taking the viewers on a journey, truly. And I mentioned in that series recently that if you would like to speak a language well, one of the biggest mistakes that I see so many learners doing is that they're silent when they're studying. They go through a language course and they don't open their mouths. So of course, when you go to speak to somebody, you're going to be shaky, you're going to be nervous, you're not used to it. Your pronunciation is not going to be good, right? Because you have to basically train your mouth and your brain to produce new sounds, right, in a language. And it's not just about the sound, it's about the rhythm and the intonation and how those things connect together. It's not just about how you pronounce an individual word, it's how does that word fit into a larger sentence, right? Because words are pronounced differently when they're isolated as opposed to when they're in a, that was distracting, in a sentence. And so it's really important that you open your mouth, and Babbel is an amazing tool for this. Babbel helped me develop really strong and accurate pronunciation in many languages because there's so much opportunity to repeat, right? And to repeat the same stuff over and over and over again, because in one lesson you get the chance to repeat a certain word 3, 4, 5, 6 times, but then they'll use the same words all throughout the course, but those words you learned, they will pop up as sort of like side things in a dialogue. So you have the chance to really develop strong pronunciation with Babbel, but you need to be constantly repeating. So I'm doing Portuguese right now, so every single time, even when I'm in public, I'll do it quietly. Every time Babbel gives me a piece of audio, I repeat it back. Right, so it might seem simple, but really ask yourself if you're doing it, and you need to be very intentional when you repeat stuff. If there are sounds in the language that you struggle with, like the French R, merci, right, or the Spanish R, or whatever it might be, the Russian U, every single time you get the opportunity to repeat it after the speaker on the Babbel course, take the opportunity. It's going to help you a lot. Now the next one that actually ties really closely into this is you really need to be paying close attention to all the things that are being said in the example sentences. Now, a lot of courses, especially book courses, they're kind of notorious for having very archaic language. It's often overly polite. It's often, the dialogues are not written in a way that people actually talk. It's something that I think a lot of us are familiar with, right? So they're not terribly reliable for learning how to actually speak. Babbel is one of the resources where they do a really good job of using very natural language in their dialogues. They use tons of like useful idioms and expressions and phrases. They're really good at that, and that's one of my favorite things about Babbel. So this is a huge mistake that a lot of people make when using Babbel, which I've observed with lots of my students, and I even did a survey privately with my clients. People will just focus on the blanks. So you'll have this really nice, beautiful example sentence that's oftentimes humorous and funny, but there's one blank word, right? And people just focus on the blank word, that's it. They just focus on reproducing the correct answer and they move on. Huge mistake. If you pay attention to every single sentence that you're given in Babbel, and you say it out loud with conviction, with intention, right? You are going to learn an enormous amount of language, of vocabulary, but you're also going to develop an intuition for how people actually speak. Because what Babbel does is they will tend to give you, they'll often give you the same exact sentence over and over throughout the whole course, but the blank will be a different word, right? The focus is a different word, but the same stuff will come up. Same in the dialogues, right? They'll drop these little gems everywhere, sometimes like really cool idioms. And there's a translation, right? So your focus is not on that. Your focus is on, you know, one of the vocabulary words you've been learning. But I'm telling you, the cool thing is they will use the same ones. I'll give you an example. I'm doing Babbel Portuguese right now, as I'm sort of reviving and bringing back my Portuguese skills. And the other day there was one, and it was like, nem pensar, which basically is kind of like, oh, don't even think about it. Like, that's out of the question. No, like not even a thought. But that wasn't the focus of the lesson. That was just a random thing that was in my dialogue. The word I was supposed to be learning was irritada, like irritated. But I saw that and I took a screenshot on my phone and then later went and transferred it to my notebook. Because that's great. I need to know how to say like, oh, come on, no, don't even think about it. That's not a good idea. That's useful, right? So all throughout the Babbel dialogues, I'm taking screenshots, I'm trying to capture the phrases, and then I find that they come up over and over and over again. So by the time I finish like all of the Babbel beginner courses, or especially the intermediate courses, I find that like I have developed a really good sense of how people talk, and I'm able to actually use quite colloquial like mannerisms and so those are two really important things that you can do to really get the most out of Babbel. If you go through Babbel just focusing on the blanks, just focusing on the things that you're supposed to be focusing on, then sure, you'll learn a lot of words, you'll learn a lot of grammar, it's still useful. But if you do these two things, if you absolutely focus on really, again, with intention and with conviction, like repeating after, when they say, oh, nem pensar, say it like that. Don't just say nem pensar. Say it with conviction. Really like mimic their intonation, their mood, and pay attention to what they're actually saying in the dialogues. Pay attention to, oh, that's a cool way of saying that. Oh, that's an interesting little idiom. Or, oh, I like the way that they said that. Just pay attention. That's all you have to do. And I promise, by the time you finish all the beginner courses that they have in that particular language, especially if they have intermediate courses and beyond, you will develop a really great sort of, at least the foundation for being able to speak in a natural way, like people actually speak. So those are my 2 tips for today. I just want to say thank you to all of my patrons. We're up to 11 patrons now, which I'm super excited about. So thank you guys so much for that. Even $1 is a really appreciated and acceptable contribution. And of course, thank you guys, all of the subscribers, commenters, people that communicate with me and engage in a dialogue. I really appreciate that. So thank you all.